Hey folks, it's Takota Coen here from Coen Farm, and I'm just out in one of the spokes of our hub and spoke integrated livestock system here with the dairy cows and the Berkshire pigs here. And I'm really excited about this new system of actually having the pigs and the cows graze together. Before the previous 5 or 6 years we've been developing this system, we've had the dairy cows and the pigs always in separate spokes of the system. So that every day they came back for the central hub where we do our chores, where the dairy cows get milked, where the pigs are fed their fermented grain with raw milk in it as well. But this year, as every year, we're always trying new things to see if there's other improvements or changes we can make to the system. We decided, what if we just put them together? The pigs and the cows share a lot of the same needs and yields, and we've been really happy with it. It's probably cut our chores down in half, because now I'm only moving one fence, and the piglets are actually out on grass earlier. Typically we would hold them back and into the center of the hub of the system, so that because they're so small, they're challenging to fence in with regular electric wire, and so we would keep them kind of locked up in the hub system until they're 30-40 pounds, and I would actually scythe grass twice a day for them, so that they could still have access to the nutrient-dense grass that grows first thing in the season like this. But this has just really amped things up a bit. The other thing that's really nice about it is the pigs have a lot better access to these guys right here, which are essentially piles of sauerkraut. Any ruminant animal, like Bella here, one of our dairy cows, she's being milked right now. Good girl. Any ruminant animal is essentially a walking fermentation tank, and they're grabbing this incredible nutrient-dense grass, and they're sucking it into their bodies, where they, through a series of 4 different stomachs, they break it down, ferment it with a variety of bacteria, and what comes out the other end is basically sauerkraut. And they're able to access a lot more nutrients that way from the food, as opposed to the pigs, which are a monogastric animal similar to us. They have a much shorter digestive tract, only one stomach, and they're still able to get some nutrients from grass, just like we're able to get some nutrients from lettuce and vegetables and things like that. But they don't get as much, and they don't have as diverse of a bacteria and stomach flora as our cattle would. So having constant access to that livestock manure whenever they need it. This morning I was out here checking the animals, and the piglets were all huddled in a little circle, and they all had their heads facing in, and I was wondering what they were doing, and I walked over to them, and they were all gathered around one of those piles of sauerkraut, just licking it clean, and they'd basically eaten an entire cow pie from an area there. And it's something that we've seen a lot from our animals. At certain times they don't eat them every day, or at least I don't see them eating them every day like they would other food. But they really, at certain times of the year, they like having those probiotics. Very similar to humans, I'm sure. They're in tune with their bodies, and they know what they need. And so just giving them a system where they're all able to access it and self-medicate as needed is just, it simplifies the work from our perspective, but it also empowers the animals to enact their own free will and really be as healthy as they can be. So as you can see here, this is one of the spokes that heads back to the integrated livestock system that's just over there, that I've talked about in some of my other videos. You can go back and check out. But this is about we're in a 20-acre field right now that it's actually a 30-acre field that's been divided. You can see kind of over there distance. It's been divided into, there's a 10-acre piece on that, and that's where we planted our grain crop this year. Again, I did another video about that earlier in the year, about how we're trying to do an optimized disturbance or optimized tillage-based organic grain growing system. But the other side of this 30-acre field is a 20-acre piece that will be planted to a very similar cropping system just later in the year. So around the first week of July, we're going to come through after the dairy cows and the pigs have grazed through this entire area over the next month and a half. We'll come through with that same rototiller and the same seed mix actually, and plant it, but in the first week of July as opposed to the first week of May. And the crop that we'll get off of this is something called swath grazing, which is when you basically swath an immature grain crop while it's still in its grass stage. It hasn't actually yet, the seed heads haven't actually formed into grain. And because it's swathed, you're able to have a concentrated feeding area that allows your cattle to access that resource into the winter during challenging weather, where you've got a lot of snow on the ground. That, if there was a forage resource like this that was covered with a lot of snow, you wouldn't be able to get access to it, because they'd spend more time trying to dig through the snow than they would get from the nutrients. So they'd spend more energy than they're getting, which is not great. So we'll be able to come in here in this 20-acre piece and plant the same annual grain crop with 12, 15 different species, and swath that in September. Hopefully get a good snow afterwards, which will basically act like a deep freeze to seal in the nutrients in that forage resource. And then our pigs, our dairy cows, and our beef cows will winter on this 20-acre piece. And we'll have actually basically all the animals and the chickens as well. And then what we'll be doing is in the same way that the cows right now are fermenting grass and stuff. Hey Blossom, how you doing, lovey? Good girl. Oh, good girl. Yes, lovey. Good girl. In the same way that the dairy cows are fermenting grass for the pigs right now, they'll also be fermenting the grain, basically like silage, or the same way that I'm fermenting the grain in 5-gallon buckets right now for my pigs. The dairy cows will continue to do that with those little immature heads that are on the things like the oats and the peas and the barley and any other annuals that we throw in there. And we'll be doing some more videos on this later, but those cow pies then will have actually fermented grain heads in them that the pigs, with other little trials that we've done, they really enjoy those little basically sourdough loaves of bread that the cows bake in their stomachs. So the whole goal behind this kind of system that we've been developing for the past it's about 6 years now, where we've been tinkering around with this, is really comes down to kind of 3 things: efficiency, effectiveness, and ethics. So the efficiency piece is having to deal with using the least amount of energy to achieve a particular goal. Our goal here is nutrient-dense food. The effectiveness is how well we're actually achieving that goal. And then the ethical piece is, can we achieve nutrient-dense food with the least amount of energy in a way that is good for other people, the planet, and good for the future as well, so that other people continue to produce nutrient-dense food in this way. And so those are kind of the criteria that we use on the farm here to design these systems. If folks are familiar with permaculture design, that's one of the frameworks that we use. And it's just one of the little piglets lost his tribe. He doesn't know where they are. So little fun fact for you. You hear that noise? From the little piglet here. So that noise that he's making is just little oinks. The name of a herd of pigs is actually called a sounder. I actually don't know the origin of that, but I'm assuming it's because of this the sounds that they always make, and you can kind of just hear them. But they're very much, pack animals. They're like herds, schools of fish, actually, and really enjoyable to watch them come out here eating all this grass. I'll be doing some more videos on this in the future, but our pigs they don't have access to a self-feeder. So, a lot of other producers will, oh, there they found their buddies. A lot of other producers basically give their pigs free access to white bread 24/7, which is what a self-feeder is. It's dry, unfermented flour, basically. So it's actually worse than white bread. And those pigs then have access to that resource all the time, and some other producers will put their pigs out on pasture like this, but a lot of the times the pigs just hang around the feeders and basically only eat the white bread, whereas as for us, we're trying to, again, because it's about efficiency, we're trying to use the least amount of energy. Grain is a very energy expensive crop. It takes a lot of fossil fuels and a lot of time and energy to produce. It's very calorie dense, and it can be nutrient dense if it's prepared properly. I'll get to that in a second. But the big concern that we have is the amount of fossil fuels that it takes to use it. And fossil fuels, of course, are a finite resource, which we're trying to get away from. So we're trying to minimize the amount of grain that our pigs are eating. And the way that we're doing that is limit feeding them. So we only feed them twice a day. And you've seen other videos where we fed our pigs in those troughs. I'll talk more about those and how we made those and all the different iterations. But so we only feed them twice a day, and what we feed them isn't dry flour or white bread. It's sourdough. It's actually fermented grain mixed with grass. About 30% grass is where we're at right now, and every year we increase that. And so that's fermented for 12 to 24 hours, depending on the timing of the year. For the summertime, it's fermented for 24 hours. In the winter, we only ferment for 12, just because of space limitations. And then the rest of the time, the pigs have to come out and because they're not incentivized to stick around, this white bread factory, they're going to come out and eat a lot more grass than they would otherwise. And because we've been doing this system for about 6 years now, the pigs they've starting to adapt to being able to eat a lot more forage in their diet. So at an absolute minimum, our pigs' diet is minimum 30% grass by weight, or some kind of forage, because we actually, when we make our feed, I'll do more videos on this in the future, we actually grind up small square bales into the mix mill and grind that with the feed. So by weight, they're minimum 30%, and they only get fed twice a day, and the rest of the food, the pigs have to come get for themselves. And because we've done the omega-3 testing with our animals, on the beef, pork, and the eggs, we found that our pork has fantastic omega-3 3 to 6 ratio. I believe it's like 5 times higher than anything you get in the supermarket, basically at the same level that the quote-unquote omega-3 pork is in the stores. But our pork also has other omega-3s that are typically only found in seafood, and that's because of a very other unique food crop that we feed them a little bit later in the year called duckweed. I'll be doing some more videos on that. It's okay, Sally, come here. Good girl. Oh, so I hope you guys enjoyed this little video about our integrated livestock hub and spoke system here on the farm. If you did like it, please hit the like button and subscribe and follow us on social media, YouTube, all other channels. And if you had any questions or comments about this video, make sure you put those below, and I'll be sure to answer them. And if you have any suggestions about other videos you'd like to see about some of the other systems that we've been developing on the farm, make sure to put those down there too. Anyways, we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much. Bye.